Although the city of Rome was much smaller after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, it was still a city. People living in the city needed food and other supplies. It is very difficult for people who live in cities to grow the food they need. Food has to come from farming areas outside the city. After the fall of the empire, however, there was no one to take charge and arrange to bring these kinds of supplies into Rome. Who would perform those duties now? Remember when Attila the Hun almost attacked Rome? The person who talked him out of doing that was Pope Leo I, Rome's bishop. The term pope is another title given to the bishop of Rome. There was still an emperor at that time, but the power of the emperor was fading fast. The power of Rome's bishop, on the other hand, was growing. Many Germanic groups conquered the Roman lands, and yet, in a sense, the victors had also been conquered. They weren't conquered by the Roman army, but by the Roman Church. Rome was a Christian empire when it fell in 476, and many of the people who took Rome's lands eventually converted to Christianity. They also adopted Rome's customs or traditions. Many also began to speak the language of Rome. Over time, the Roman language in the different parts of the old empire began to develop into different but related languages. That is why modern French, Italian, and Spanish are called Romance languages. These languages developed from the Latin language of Rome over hundreds of years. Even though newcomers had conquered Rome, they admired what it stood for. It had been the center of the most powerful empire for hundreds of years. Rome's conquerors respected and held on to many Roman laws and customs. They also kept the Latin language and the Roman religion. When there was no longer a Western emperor, the Bishop of Rome became the most important official in the city. Pope Leo said that the Bishop of Rome was the most important official in the Christian Church. He claimed that his power as Bishop of Rome reached far beyond the city of Rome itself. What were the reasons behind Leo's claim to power? He claimed that the power of the Bishop of Rome came from Jesus himself, through St. Peter. Leo said that Jesus chose Peter to be the head of the church. According to Christian belief, Peter left Jerusalem after Jesus was killed and went to Rome. Leo and his supporters believed that Peter became the first bishop of Rome. The bishops of Rome that followed him were heirs to Peter's position as head of the Christian church. Using this argument, Leo and those who followed him claimed that they were the Papa, from which we get the word pope, or father, of the Christian church. With the former Western Roman Empire broken up into many smaller kingdoms and territories, the Bishop of Rome, as leader of the church in all these regions, claimed power throughout Europe. Not everyone agreed with the claims of the bishops of Rome. In fact, there were 4 other bishops who also viewed themselves as leaders of the Christian church. These were the bishops of Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. These cities were all located in the Eastern Roman Empire. Remember how the Roman Empire was divided into 2 parts? One part was the Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome. The other part was the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire. In the early 300s, Emperor Constantine, the first Christian emperor of the Roman Empire, built a new eastern capital at the site of the ancient Greek city of Byzantine. He named this new capital Constantinople. While the Western Empire was weakened by internal problems and eventually destroyed by invaders, the Eastern Empire survived. However, the Eastern Empire's culture was much less Roman than the Western Empire's. The eastern part of the empire was more Greek than Roman. Most of its people did not speak Latin or languages that were influenced by Latin. Do you think the bishops of Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem were more influenced by the bishop of Constantinople or by the bishop of Rome? If you said Constantinople, you were right. Over time, the number of differences between Christians in the eastern and western regions increased. There had always been some differences, of course. Even though both groups were Christians, they spoke different languages and had different cultures. However, more and more disagreements sprang up. Some of these disagreements may seem trivial today, but in the Middle Ages, they were not. For example, Christians in the former Western Empire used flat bread made without yeast in their holy ceremonies. Christians in the Eastern Empire used bread made with yeast in their holy ceremonies. More important was the larger issue of who was in charge of the church. Bishops in the Eastern Empire did not like accepting the rule of the Bishop of Rome as the final word on all church matters. They were used to ruling in a more cooperative manner, in which each bishop had a vote. Over time, the bishops in the Eastern Church developed a very different tradition of governing the church and its religious customs. They did, however, accept the belief that the Bishop of Rome was the heir of St. Peter. In 1054, the differences between the bishops of Rome and Constantinople came to a head. After some major disagreements, the two churches separated. Christian bishops in the Eastern Empire, including Bulgarians, Serbs, Russians, Syrians, and Egyptians, chose to join with the Bishop of Constantinople. People on both sides of this argument expected that the division between the two parts of the church was just temporary. Over time, however, the two sides did not get back together. In fact, they found more reasons to disagree. Today, the church that is headed by the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, is known as the Roman Catholic Church. The church in the region that was ruled by Constantinople, now Istanbul, Turkey, is generally known as the Eastern Orthodox Church. In the rest of this unit, we will mostly focus on the lands of the Western Church.